Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be looking at restoration shamans, and this is going to be a guide video, but this is going to be a little bit different because I mainly will be looking at the gameplay aspect. How do I heal as a shaman in 5-man scenarios? How do I heal as a shaman in raid situations? What talents and stat priority is going to be good for me and things like that. So first of all, let's look at the raiding situations, and this is probably going to be your default talent build for raids with Unleash Life, Echoes. Tier 45 is very interchangeable. Earthen Wall Totem shows up on healing meters, and a lot of people will use Earthen Wall Totem if you want to provide extra support to your raid or specific boss fights. Ancestral Protection Totem can be one of the biggest reasons to invite Resto Shaman if you're progressing high content. But generally speaking, Earthen Wall Totem, Graceful Spirit is going to provide you with more effectiveness with healing on the move, which is going to reduce the cooldown of Spirit Walker's Grace. Spirit Walker's Grace is your #1 tool when you need to move and heal, so you can pop that there and it's going to reduce the cooldown. Cloudburst Totem is the #1 best talent, or at least in raid situations, and makes Resto Shamans a little more complex and a little more fun to play. And High Tide is probably the #1 pick choice in raid situations because it gives you more continuous AoE healing, because Chain Heal has been buffed immensely over the last couple of patches, meaning the Chain Heal is going to be your go-to spell to use when raid is taking damage, or when in 5-man situations when everyone's stacked and people need AoE healing. So let's look at raid situations and how do you heal. There's a priority to Resto Shaman healing, and that is to do with keeping Riptide or generating tidal waves. So you can see a bubble right here represents 1 tidal wave. So tidal wave is going to make the cast time of your healing wave reduced, or the critical effect chance of your next healing surge increased. So Healing Surge is your fast, inefficient heal, which costs more mana, but it's faster. And Healing Wave is your slow, efficient heal. So with tidal waves, these healing abilities become stronger. So majority of the time, bread and butter, you never want to cast Healing Surge or Healing Wave without tidal waves. So how do I generate these tidal waves? You generate them by either using Riptide or casting Chain Heal. Chain Heal is also going to generate a tidal wave proc. So once you have these tidal waves, you can consider using your Healing Wave, which is going to be faster, or Healing Surge, which is going to be stronger on specific spot healing targets. Healing Surge when someone's about to die, or Healing Wave when you want to be efficient. So that is your bread and butter, tidal wave procs, managing this. Now don't be too scared about overriding these or not making the most effective use of tidal wave procs, because during heavy AoE healing burst you might be using Chain Heal a lot, especially with high tide procs. So every time you use Chain Heal is going to generate tidal wave, and tidal wave might be overwritten. But the point is, casting Chain Heal during those AoE situations is going to be the most efficient way to go. So a lot of the times you might override them, you might not make the best use of it, but you'll get better hang of it once you play Resto Shaman a bit more. Now, outside of that, like I mentioned, you'll be using your Riptide on cooldown. If you have Unleash Life, which you should in raid situations, you will be using that on cooldown as well, which is going to heal the person initially, and then it's going to make your direct heal 35% stronger. So once you have this buff, what to use it on? You have multiple options. So majority of the time when there's not much stuff going on, people will just use Unleash Life and they'll buff their next Riptide. If there is AoE healing needed, they'll use their Unleash Life into Chain Heal. If someone is about to die and you have your Unleash Life, and if you want to provide a crazy single burst healing, you can use Unleash Life with tidal wave proc and use it on Healing Surge on a person who's about to die. But majority of the times people will be using it Unleash Life into Riptide, Unleash Life into Chain Heal. And you'll be using that on cooldown, you'll be using Riptide on cooldown, and you will make sure that your healing rain is placed on a clumped up group. Remember that healing rain can heal up to 6 people at a time, so maximizing that is quite important. Trying to place it on stacked melee group or stacked range group is quite important. Have a weak order that tells you when it's down, because it is an effective or efficient heal to use, and it's going to provide, free healing into your Cloudburst. So this is when we go on to Cloudburst efficiency. Cloudburst is going to store up all of your healing, and that includes overhealing, or at least percentage of that healing and overhealing, into a totem that you can actually release earlier, depending on when you want to release it. So if you feel like there's not going to be any damage happening right now, you can just press it again and it's going to pop and it's going to provide free healing. So this is a very mana efficient totem that you can use, and there's multiple ways to really optimize it. But because you will be running in raid situations, you'll be running Echoes of the Elements, which will provide you with 2 Riptides, will provide you 2 charges of Healing Stream Totem, which gets replaced by Cloudburst. So 2 charges of Cloudburst, meaning the new Resto Shamans most likely will just use Cloudburst on cooldown, because they might not know when the damage is going to happen. They might not know whether the damage is going to be continuous, whether there's going to be a huge burst of healing needed. So new Shamans will most likely just pop it on cooldown and go with their healing rotation as usual. Once you know the damage patterns a bit better, you might start delaying your Cloudburst, you might start popping it earlier and things like that. So it comes with experience. It definitely complicates Resto Shaman healing a bit more, but it's not as hard as it was in Legion because you have 2 charges. So overall, once you place Cloudburst, you want to maximize your healing. You want to make sure you cast Healing Rain afterwards, and Healing Rain should always be casted, you know, or should be always up. During that time, if you really want to optimize your healing during Cloudburst, Chain Heal is going to be extremely strong, especially if you use High Tide. So what happens now, once I used up 40,000 mana because I'm using High Tide, my next 2 Chain Heals are going to be way stronger. So you might get this god combo that happens where you have Cloudburst Totem available, you have your High Tide buffs, and you have your Unleash Life off cooldown. So you can use Unleash Life and then cast your Chain Heals. And those Chain Heals with High Tide buff are going to be healing for a ton, and they're going to go into your Cloudburst Totem, and then your Cloudburst Totem is going to pop and it's going to provide an insane amount of healing. So this combo is actually really strong, but it's not something that you play for. I mean, advanced or someone who's really experienced with Resto Shaman might be able to play for it, might be using the specific record to see when your High Tide is going to proc and things like that. But for a new Resto Shaman, you'll still be using Unleash Life on cooldown. You'll still be using it on like Riptide or Chain Heal. You'll most likely still be using your Cloudburst on cooldown, making sure your Healing Rain is down. And if that combo happens, it happens. It's great. Like, it's going to provide a lot of healing. So this is basically your bread and butter in raid scenarios. Outside of that, you have tons of utility cooldowns as well, because as a Resto Shaman, you might have Earthen Wall Totem, which you can place on a group. And this is going to provide continuous absorption, so people need to stand in it to have maximize the absorption that the totem provides. If you're looking for Ancestral Protection Totem or to provide extra utility for the raid, like things like Mythic Jaina, it's very cool. And a lot of people don't realize that once you place your Ancestral Protection Totem, the people who stand in it, they are going to gain extra increased health. So this is very strong for Crucible of the Storm's Mythic first boss as well, to survive those, you know, Promise of Power debuffs and things like that. But once you place a totem, the people in its range, if they die, they're able to use Totem Recall or whatever it's called and not use up Battle Res charges, which makes this totem, if you know someone's going to die, Mythic Jaina, tanks, sacrificing tanks, makes Resto Shamans the best healers, the best utility healers for those fights. So there's a lot of totems, as well as Windrush Totem, another really strong utility totem for raids, where you're able to place it and it's going to give an increased speed boost for all of the raid. And this can be optimized in so many different ways. There's so many fights where this is going to be very strong. So Resto Shaman, as you can see already, is a utility king in a lot of these situations. Just a quick overview of some of the Azeroth traits that I use for, let's say, for my Shaman in raiding situations. A lot of people will be using Spouting Spirits. A lot of people will be using Overflowing Shores. They'll be stacking these traits, and what it does is basically your Healing Rain is going to be bigger, and once you cast your Healing Rain, there's going to be an initial heal on the targets. This is actually a tier from like Legion Resto Shamans. And Spouting Spirits is going to mean that your Spirit Link is going to be bigger, and after you place Spouting Spirits, a second after that, the people in your Spirit Link are going to be healed, and it's going to change your Spirit Link from a damage reduction cooldown to a damage reduction plus HPS cooldown. And a lot of people will try to time this properly. Like, for example, someone who's experienced, damage is going to happen right now. They place Spirit Link on the group, damage happens, people in Spirit Link take 10% less damage because Spirit Link reduces the damage taken by 10%. So keep that in mind, it's very strong. When the damage happens, everyone's at around 50% HP. Spirit Link kind of balances everyone's HP, and then Spouting Spirits happens right afterwards. So this is what like an experienced Resto Shaman might do. But if you don't trust your judgment, if you don't trust the damage timers and things like that, it's usually way safer to play Spirit Link after damage happens. So everyone's taken 50% HP, everyone's really low, then you place your Spirit Link balances out everyone's HP, and then Spouting Spirits heals for a ton. There's much less chance of failure using this. If we look at the Resto Shaman in 5-man content, there's most likely, or the rotation will change a little bit from the rating situation, because you'll probably be casting less chain heals in 5-mans, depending on which affixes you get. There'll be a lot more of, you know, generating tidal waves with Riptides and using them on Healing Surge or Healing Wave kind of combo, which is going to provide better single target burst. Now, in terms of talents, I feel this talent choices are pretty decent for 5-mans on an average healing week, with Undulation giving you additional single target burst potential. I really enjoy Echoes of the Elements and Cloudburst Totem on really heavy healing weeks. I feel this is the #1 choice to go on Grievous weeks, on bursting Quaking combo weeks as well. In the recent bursting Quaking combo, I used Cloudburst and Echoes of the Elements, and even Unleash Life, because majority of my healing came from Chain Heal. So the way I would time it is that I would have Cloudburst available. I will be either casting Chain Heal on majority of the group and trying to build into my Cloudburst, and I would have Unleash Life to buff my Chain Heal. And when Quaking is about to happen and I can't be casting any spells and everyone's gonna die, I'll pop my Cloudburst a little bit earlier to top up people so Quaking would not kill them. And with this kind of combo, my Chain Heal was really strong because the group was kind of melee, and Cloudburst ended up doing a lot of healing and even saving people. And on Grievous weeks, I do the same kind of deal, except I try to, you know, maximize my single target. Depending on how many people have Grievous on them, I'll try to maximize my single target healing. I'll have my Cloudburst Totem available at all times, and if I feel someone is already at 4 stacks of Grievous and my Cloudburst is, you know, it's full, there's tons of healing on it available, I might pop my Cloudburst a little early to try and bring, let's say, the tank from that 4 stacks of Grievous and try to remove all of those stacks with that Cloudburst timing, because the tank was the only person in the group who was taking any damage. And this is most likely going to happen a lot for Resto Shamans in Grievous weeks, because Resto Shaman's single target healing can be somewhat lackluster. So I compensate or overcompensate the lack of single target healing from Resto Shamans with Cloudburst timings in 5-man dungeons. So I honestly feel Cloudburst and Echoes of the Elements is really strong. Depending on a week that's less healing intensive, you might be going with Flash Floods if you enjoy faster heals and things like that. You might be going with Ascendance. Ascendance can be an additional cooldown to use in 5-man dungeons if you feel you need an additional cooldown, because Healing Tide Totem is really weak in 5-mans because it does not scale per group. So you might feel you want an Ascendance. Keep in mind, if you run with Ascendance, it's going to duplicate your healing or replicate your healing. You should always use Ascendance under the effects of Cloudburst, because once you have Cloudburst available and if you use Ascendance, you're going to be healing, you're going to be trying to top up the group, and all of that healing or all that duplicate healing is going to go into Cloudburst as well. So after Ascendance expires, or all of that extra healing is going to go into Cloudburst, and that's going to be more free healing. So no matter whether you pick Ascendance in raids or 5-mans, always try and make sure that you use Ascendance with Cloudburst, because that's a lot of extra healing. In terms of some utility abilities, I mean, Earthen Wall is probably going to be a good choice in 5-mans, because Ancestral Vigor, which increases, basically increases health of targets in 5-man dungeons, it's not always great, because a lot of affixes in 5-man dungeons scale off percentage of HP. So this Ancestral Vigor is not gonna, the value that it provides is not gonna be great on affixes which scale off percentage, HP percentage, and there are a lot of affixes that do that. So a lot of the times people will go Earthen Wall, Graceful Spirit, again, Spirit Walker's Grace. When you need that healing on the move, you pop it and you go ham, you go hardcore healing. And if Graceful Spirit is going to reduce the cooldown on that, Graceful Spirit is great in 5-mans and raids. So all of a sudden, things like, in terms of Azeroth traits, you'll have Turn of the Tide, which is probably your best 5-man talent to use. Both bonuses of tidal waves are increased by 5%, and spells affected by it heal for an additional %. Remember that the 5% bonus in Azeroth, or anything to do with percentages in Azeroth, most likely are not going to stack, but the flat amount of flat numbers are going to be stacking. So this is a strong 5-man dungeon Azeroth trait. Stat priority for raiding and Mythic plus Resto Shaman would be something like critical strike, versatility, and then like mastery and haste are kind of equivalent because crit and versatility are just always good. Mastery is very, very dependent on the content that you do. Resto Shaman Mastery means that you're going to be healing more on targets that are lower HP. If you're overhealing content in raid situations, if there is not a lot of healing to be done in 5-man situations and no one dips low, your Mastery is going to be pretty bad. If you're underhealing content in raid situations, Mastery could be a very, very solid choice. And the same kind of deal with Haste. Haste in raid situations is going to be less desirable because mana might be an issue. In 5-man situations, this goes for every single healer out there. In 5-man situations, it's going to increase in value because you're able to drink between the pulls. But of course, there's niche scenarios where you're doing 18 or 19 tyrannical keys and haste or at least mana consumption might be a consideration. So that's why a lot of people will tell you crit verse is the way to go, because they're always good no matter what content you do. And then haste and mastery are dependent on which content you do, whether you're overhealing it, whether you're underhealing content and things like that. But overall, this was my summary of the gameplay for Resto Shamans. Let me know if you want to see more of these kind of videos for other healers, or maybe you want to see more videos on Resto Shamans and things like that. If you like the content, please do subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next guide.